Let me just say what's important, I think. Firstly, what a wonderful thing you did, naming a scholarship in memory of Morris Ostroff, who, again, will be a beacon of light and will be missed by all of us. We're in the presence here of some unbelievable people from Barry Shore over there, and Frida Keat over there, and Tova Ben-Dov over here, and all kinds of amazing people who have done incredible things for Israel. What Morris did was he took on one issue or person at a time. His big feat, as you all know, was taking on Justice Richard Goldstone, and it was a David and Goliath thing, and he won. He won. He took on Christiane Amanpour, and he won. He took on, a whole bunch of people, one at a time. What am I trying to say here? Sometimes when you look at the big picture, you think this is impossible. But if you target a specific audience, people who like food, gay people, people who are interested in our natural gas industry, people who are interested in high tech, and you target each audience one at a time and invite them to come and see for themselves, just like we do on Birthright. Come and see for yourselves what unbelievable things we're doing, what a miracle Israel is. One by one, we'll win them over. But it has to be done. You can't just let it go. You can't just play into their narrative, the Palestinian narrative, as Murray will tell you. We have to be proactive, not reactive. We have to show the world what we're about, not just react every time something negative is said about us. And you know, in South Africa, you'll all remember, they try to use us against ourselves. They take a Holocaust survivor, I forget. Thank you. They take a Holocaust survivor and they get them to say Israel's an apartheid state. And BDS does the same thing. It gets someone, usually a Jewish person, to say how terrible Israel is. They use us against ourselves. And I think the answer really, David, is in what you called UID, unity in diversity. In diversity. We have to stand together against our enemies. Enemies within and enemies without. We have to stand together. If we stand together, we will win eventually. If we stand together for a just, right cause and show people the truth about Israel and what we're about, and that's what the Jerusalem Post tries to do every day. We don't try to hide the ugly facts, and we certainly don't try to play into the anti-Israel agenda as some of our opponents do. If we set our own agenda for the world, as Morris would have us do, in a positive light, if we are really a light unto the nations, how can people not see it eventually? You know, growing up in South Africa, I remember, I mean, a lot of you are older than me, but I'm sure you remember too. If someone had said to us, one day, Mandela will be free from jail and South Africa will become a multiracial society, you would have said, no way, no way. No. But I've learned, and I'm sure you've learned, that individuals can make a difference. We can make a difference if we only stand together and fight for what is right. Love to all of you.
Story? What's the time? 20 past 9, so let's go into a close. I wanted to end off with one little aspect here, and that's culture. I remember a time growing up in the 60s in South Africa, where Israel exported very little, possibly Jaffa oranges, but very little else. But what it did export was its culture. And if we think back to those days, there were movies and books like Exodus. And there was that wonderful musical called Casablanca. And I remember in Cape Town going and watching the folk dance troops that were coming along. Israeli culture was brought into our homes, into our lives, and we were the darlings of the world. And I think back to what only happened 3 years ago when the Israeli-born but German resident pianist tried to play Beethoven at Wits. He didn't get to play the first note before BDS assaulted him on the stage and dragged away the piano and dragged him off and so on and so forth. My question to you is that we now do have something which we didn't have before, and that is I-24 News. For the first time, we have a 24-hour news channel. And I'm just wondering, and also in Arabic, which could be televising to the Arab communities, both in the Middle East and elsewhere. I'm just wondering what you gentlemen feel, how useful a tool this could be in our efforts, in our Hasbara. And I'm asking this because we've called for a meeting with the CEO of I-24 on the 28th of this month, and we're going to be having a meeting where we're going to be discussing this, that hopefully, because you guys can't pick it up on your internet, but you can't watch it on your TV, okay? And it's a fantastic 24-hour news channel. That's one of the things we're going to be trying to be discussing, the bureaucratic and problems, notably monopolistic issues and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go into it. But how vital do you think in terms of our Hasbara efforts, because one thing about I-24, it doesn't only handle political issues, it brings the Israeli culture into your home. There's dance, there's sport, there are all these kind of issues. It brings the normal Israel into your home, not the political and the military might of Israel. So my question is, to any of you over here, how vital a tool, an instrument of Hasbara do you think this could play? Thank you.
I volunteered to this first one because I have to apologize, I have to go. I received a message from my newspaper, I have to write an article for tomorrow, so I have to leave. But I had a very bad experience with I-24. First of all, with all the respect to culture, it will not change people's minds, unfortunately. Unfortunately. It's very important, it's very nice, but if you don't let the guy play the first, how did you call it? Then how can you bring the Israeli culture? That's first. Second, let me tell you, I have a very bad experience with I-24. I was invited many times to participate in panels. And what I found out is that out of 3 or 4, it's always, they want to be balanced. How is it to be balanced? One Palestinians from the Palestinian Authority, one Israeli extreme leftist, and then they called me in order to be balanced. So what they did actually, it's much worse even than what the CNN is doing. And it was repeated again and again, not only in Hebrew, not only in English, also in French. So I told them, you know what, if you need me as leaf left, how do you say it in English? Leaf left, alef ena? Fig leaf. Yeah, fig leaf, sorry. I told you, I promised you that my English is not perfect. And if you want me as a fig left, fig leaf, don't call me again. And I refused to participate. I apologize again, I have to go. Thank you so much for this evening.
We're going to end off now. Is there any closing statements before? Very, very brief.
Well, I'll just say one more thing.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought I had said my last word, but I'm going to let Owen say the last word. Morris liked to quote Mark Twain saying, if you don't read the newspaper, you are uninformed. If you do read the newspaper, you are misinformed. And I was thinking of this quote by, I even printed it out, do you remember the quote? The job of the newspaper is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, the job of the media. And it turns out that this was said more than 100 years ago by an Irish journalist named Finlay Peter Dunn. I won't go into the whole quote, but it turns out, and I only discovered this today, that he was actually criticizing newspapers for thinking, the media, for thinking that they have the arrogance to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. He didn't mean that that's the job of the newspaper. He said, how could you have the arrogance? And I was humbled, and I'm humbled now when I say, and I don't criticize other media, I try not to, that the media are part of the solution, but they're not the solution. Yes, it's true we should have a Jewish Al Jazeera, and maybe it'll help get our message across. It's true. It's part of the solution. But that's not the whole solution. And you can't always blame the media. And you can't always blame the Jerusalem Post for the Duma terrorism. We didn't do it. We reported on it. Should we call it terrorism? Shouldn't we? I get a lot of hate mail about this. How dare you? It's your fault. You started this intifada that we're experiencing. You can't apportion responsibility to the media for something that's ultimately not our responsibility. And so what I wanted to say, and the message I have is, yes, I-24 is a good thing. A plethora of media is a good thing. We've always been known in Israel for our diverse, wonderful range of media, and so it should be. And it's good that there's Haaretz, and it's good that there's the Times of Israel, and the more the merrier. And you shouldn't just rely on one source. If you rely on one source, we're in trouble. And your children, or grandchildren, or great-grandchildren, who don't read newspapers, and I worry about that. I worry about that every day, where they're getting the information from Facebook and Twitter and all this other social media, and how do they know that it's credible, this information? How do they know what they're hearing is true? Just because they heard a rumor that Shimon Peres died, it went all over the place. Shimon Peres died. Right, Greer? Greer Fay Cashman is over here. It wasn't true. It wasn't true. You can't always rely on the media, even the Jerusalem Post. I always say to my staff, tomorrow we'll put out the perfect paper, not today. Today we'll just do our best. And that's what we should do our best.
Thank you.
As it happens in my short time here, I was twice on I-24 News, and I asked myself the question, what impact is I-24 News having? And I have to tell you that when I went to I-24 News, each time the cab driver did not know where it was. And that worried me in terms of what impact it's having to begin with here in Israel. Now, the thing about it is it broadcasts in English, it broadcasts in French, it broadcasts in Arabic, so it can serve as an antidote, to those that are from other broadcasting media acting in a prejudicial fashion. I think what we need to do is to make an analysis of what impact it is having, and as part of public diplomacy, see what role I-24 News can play in an effective and constructive manner. Just on a final thing, one of the questions that I was asked, unfortunately, I did not have to compete with other people who might have put a contrary view on this. I was asked about the new anti-Semitism, which I didn't yet answer this evening. So David, let me close with this. I think that the real danger that we're facing in the new anti-Semitism is the manner in which it is being laundered, the manner in which it is being masked under universal public values. So, in 1948, we had delegitimization open and clear. In other words, Israel was an original sin. In the run-up to the 1967 war, Israel was held to be a congenital act of aggression. Not what Israel did was the problem, the fact that Israel existed. But today, the kind of delegitimization or even anti-Semitism is masked or laundered under things that people care about. And so it's laundered under the culture of human rights, it's laundered under international law, it's laundered under the United Nations, laundered under the struggle against racism, it's laundered under the struggle against apartheid, etc. I think what we need to do is to make it clear that this laundering of delegitimization is not simply a threat to Israel, but it's a threat to the universal public values that everyone purports to care about. So that if you care about the United Nations, one has to say, this is eroding the integrity of the United Nations. If you care about international law, this is undermining the authority of international law. If you care about the culture of human rights, this is corrupting the culture of human rights. If you care about the struggle against racism, and in particular the struggle against apartheid, this is demeaning and shaming the real struggle against the real apartheid. Maybe, to use that old psychological thing, we have to inhabit the psychology of the receiver audience. We have to talk to people in terms of what they care about, and then they may understand the danger of delegitimization. Not just to Israel, but to everything everybody else cares about. Thank you.
I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody present when I say how privileged we are to have been present at such an excellent panel discussion with such an eminent group of panelists. Our sincerest thanks to Dr. Dan Dijker, Steve Lindy, for their participation and for making this the quality event that it has indeed been. Our sincere thanks are also due to Morris was a resident, to Lynn Lockhoff, Director of Beit Protea, to Lynn Bach, who assisted in preparing our splendid venue for tonight's event. TBT's committee wants to make this an annual event. With this in mind, TBT has decided to inaugurate the annual Morris Ostroff Memorial Award to a person or to an organization for outstanding work in the field of public diplomacy. It gives me much pleasure to call on my colleague Charles Abelson to announce and introduce the recipient of the 2016 recipient of the annual Morris Ostroff Memorial Award.